Hey, Sean Hannity here with a highlight from my radio show today, right here on iHeartRadio.
Sean's got more behind-the-scenes information, more contacts than anybody, more friends behind the curtain. Sean Hannity is on.
The farmer getting up at 4 to start the day. The single mom adding a third job so her daughter can do volleyball camp. The pastor driving 40 miles because some folks need a little help. That's Nebraska. These stories aren't really all that uncommon. It's just who we are. Nebraska's Ben Sasse grew up working in the fields, son of a football coach. Later, he led the team that saved Midland from bankruptcy. Ben thinks government can do better for people with dirt under their fingernails. He'll tackle the big stuff, put the shouting aside, and just get to work. Ben and Melissa are raising their kids about a mile from where he grew up, teaching them that hard work's a blessing, just like his dad taught him. Ben's Nebraska.
I'm Ben Sasse, and I approve this message.
All right, 25 till the top of the hour, as we are now 3 weeks to the day away from the midterm elections. One of the more important Senate races we're following is in the great state of Nebraska. That ad by Senate candidate Ben Sasse, an open seat now, he's a fifth-generation Nebraskan, and he joins us now. How are you?
Sean, I'm doing well. Thanks for having me on.
Yeah. Now, you were what, the president of the 130-year-old Midland University in 2009, and tell me about that.
Yeah, so I'm college president in my hometown, 130-year-old school that was doing everything we could to go bankrupt 5 years ago, and I do crisis and turnaround phase stuff. And the school that I grew up going to sports camps at and my parents met at, my grandpa, who never went to college, worked at for 33 years. So when I was a kid, I kind of grew up on this campus. It was going to declare bankruptcy, and they asked me to lead a turnaround project, and we've been real fortunate. We're one of the fastest-growing schools in the country now.
Oh, that's pretty awesome. So how do you view the race going on there? By all indications, you're winning by a pretty healthy margin. How do you feel about it?
You know, we've had a great year. We don't pay a ton of attention to the polls, but we have 3 little kids, and we've lived on a bus for 13 months, and it now smells horrible. And we've replaced the transmission and this and that enough times. It's like George Washington's axe. We've replaced every part of our bus over the year. But we've gotten to spend the whole year traveling the 93 counties in Nebraska, and our people are serious people, and they'd like a Washington that fixes the bigger stuff instead of trying to micromanage every aspect of life. And it's pretty encouraging to spend time in real America.
So what are people telling you as you go out and talk to people all around Nebraska? By the way, I've been to Nebraska a whole bunch of times. I remember, by the way, flying over Omaha after your big flood. That shocked me. I mean, because we had paid so much attention as a country to everything that had happened after Katrina. And I remember looking, I mean, it was devastating, and we heard almost nothing about it.
It really was incredible. The 2011 version, I think you're probably talking about.
Yeah.
The Iowa side of the Missouri River just decimated. And even in Nebraska, we had a ton of damage, but been great recovery since then. But it is a beautiful state, and you need to come again, and we'll take you to the College World Series in June.
Oh, you know what? I know all about it. If you ask me how I describe myself politically, I will answer I am a Reagan conservative. How would you answer the question?
Yeah, I think I'd say some version of the same thing. Obviously, a lot of our voters, we're trying to appeal to young folks as well, and conservatives and market-oriented Republicans haven't done enough of that, persuading the next generation to join our party. So I often talk about a constructive conservative or a common-sense conservative, but I believe in the private sector first, not just for-profit institutions, though obviously that, but civil society and mediating institutions. Life, contrary to what President Obama sadly said a couple years ago, Americans believe that you did build that worldview, and of the government that's required, the vast majority of it should be delivered at the state and local level, and Washington has important responsibilities, but it's a short list of enumerated powers, and I think common sense people who work in the real world believe that stuff, and we have to go out and tell the story more effectively to win them to our cause.
Yeah. I almost didn't put you on the program, and I don't mean to be insulting here, because there are so many races that are just that much closer. Your real clear political average lead over your Democratic opponent is 22 points. You are up 27 in the latest New York Times poll that came out, CBS New York Times, and you were up in Rasmussen, but that was kind of an older poll. But why is your race a runaway race, do you think? What is different about your race than, say, the races we're following in Colorado, although Cory Gardner's now up by 7, or Louisiana, or Arkansas, or Bigich, who's going to go down, I think, in Alaska, and Joni Ernst is just up by 1.2 points in Iowa. Kay Hagan, it's a 2-point race in North Carolina. Why do you think your race is so lopsided in your favor?
Well, first of all, 21 days to go, and voters in Nebraska get to make that decision. And I've never run for anything before, so I want to give you all the qualifications about us not taking anything for granted. But I do feel blessed to live in a state where the work ethic is still pounded in lots and lots of chests. People understand that the meaning of America is about the things that you build, and we have so many people who've grown up working in the fields, walking beans into Tesla and corn, and helping with cow-calf operations. Nebraska is the largest cattle state in the union. When you put all that together, people know that if you don't get your crops in on time in the spring, you're not going to get them harvested before the freeze in the fall, and no government bureaucrat can write a different rule to change that outcome. So there's a seriousness about our people that make us just dispositionally conservative. So we're grateful for that. But I think one of the things that you've also seen practically in our campaign, again, I'm a 42-year-old non-politician, so I've never done this before, so there's a lot I don't know. But we have pounded the ground in 93 counties. We did an all-town hall strategy. We had a very competitive primary. We had 5 good guys in our Republican primary, and one was the richest guy running in America this cycle, and another started with 85% name ID, and I had 3% name ID, so nobody knew us. And so we just decided we were going to live and go talk to Nebraskans all day, every day, and nobody's ever really run this aggressive a grassroots campaign in Nebraska, and we've brought out a lot of people who are dispositionally inclined to vote for Republican presidential candidates, but really turned off by both political parties. And we've got a whole bunch of folks supporting our cause because they really do believe the country's imperiled, but they're skeptical of the Republican Party, but they're now supporting our project.
Well, I couldn't have said that any better. You're describing the reason that I love Middle America. I wish, and this may sound strange as a kid that grew up in Long Island, New York, and I've lived around the country quite a bit. I lived in Rhode Island 5 years, California 5 years, Alabama 2 years, Atlanta 4 years. And I've gotten to travel to every state in the union but Alaska, which I've never been to yet. And I really, it was an education for me to travel around the country because I wish I grew up on a farm like you're describing. I wish I did some of the corn stuff that you're talking about. I wish I raised cattle a little bit because there's something about really going back to, I think, the roots of where things come from. It's just invigorating to me. I mean, the fact that I started as a dishwasher and a cook and a busboy and a bartender and a painter and a contractor, I think really that's the better part of me. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I think real well stated. You were kind to play at the beginning of the segment, the new commercial we have up. Yeah. Folks can watch it.
Sounded like Paul Harvey. I felt like I was, and that's why Paul Harvey was so popular.
Yeah, Sasse4Nebraska.com spelled out is a way to see the whole commercial. But we think that the work ethic is exactly what you were talking about there. That is where when you go to a town hall and you let people talk not about politics first, but you say, what are you most worried about in the country? Moms and grandmas will stand up and they'll say, I got a kid and all he does is play video games, and I worry that we're not passing along the meaning of America to the next generation. There's some data that shows that.
I feel the same way. Honestly, I worry more about my kids. Let me tell you, I put out what I call the Conservative Solution Caucus. I did this in the early part of the year. And I'm asking every candidate that comes on the program, it shouldn't be a surprise question for you. I think, and this is separate from national security, which I'll ask you about, but in terms of getting 50 million Americans out of poverty, 50 million Americans off of food stamps, increasing the labor participation rate, which is at a 40-year low, I think there are things we should do. One is stop robbing from our kids, and that means balance our budget. I like the Mac Penny plan. I think we need an alternative, a consensus conservative alternative to Obamacare. That, to me, is health care savings accounts. We see North Dakota unemployment is virtually zero. We've got to go towards energy independence. The government is an obstacle in that process. We need to secure our borders first, and I believe schools are failing our kids. I think we need choice in education to raise the next generation of innovators. What are your top 5 items?
Yeah, it's darn close to yours. So I'm familiar with your proposals, and I'm on board. First of all, we're on a pathway toward a Greek-style debt and decline crisis, and there's 68% unemployment in the under 30 population in Greece. Not kids, but job seekers under 30. And this isn't the fault of the hardworking people of Athens and Corinth. This is a political class that was vacuous and didn't tell the truth. And eventually, debt and credit markets said, "Well, now we need to charge you an interest rate commensurate with your responsibility." That's our future unless we lead our way out of it. So we need entitlement reform. Number 2, we need a foreign policy that's coherent, that does prioritize the U.S. national security interests. You got to secure borders. You got to have coherence about the fact that when we're cautious about making alliances, but once you do, Israel versus Hamas, there's no moral equivalency. One side is killing women, shooting at women and children, and the other side is doing it by hiding missile launch sites behind women and children in schools and hospitals.
I don't understand why more people don't get that. I'm with you.
The European media is the worst, but the American media is almost as bad in just playing this, college philosophy class game about it all. When Prime Minister Netanyahu's great quote this summer, if Israel would lay down its weapons, there would be no Israel. And we all know that if Hamas would lay down its weapons, there'd be no war. We need to have a foreign policy that's coherent, that's pragmatic realism, that goes slow about making commitments, but plans to defend U.S. national security interests unequivocally. Obviously, your education point about choice, we're going to need to become a nation of lifelong learners. Kids graduating from my college this last summer, demographers and economists will tell you they're not just going to change jobs, they're going to change industries 3 times in their first 10 years out of school. And if they're not prepared to strive towards self-sufficiency and recognizing that right now we have federal monies in the higher ed space and local monies in the K-12 space that are driven primarily by desire for incumbent institutions to succeed and not have to make hard choices, not kids and poor families to get choice and opportunity, we're not going to fix this problem until we empower our students and empower our families with more choices. And then we need regulatory reform. What happens right now in the I have a pen and I have a phone worldview of this executive branch, I can't believe how short-sighted Democrats are in not realizing that they should be standing for 3 separate but equal branches of government that check and balance one another. Because the next time we have a Republican president, we're probably going to have a problem of a Republican president who's going to be just as drunk with executive branch imperialism and unilateralism as this president. And we need to persuade some Democrats to join with us in defense of American skepticism of consolidation of power. So my agenda is really tightly like yours. Energy independence is right up there as well.
I got to tell you, we've been interviewing a lot of Senate candidates. I think by far you're the most impressive person I've interviewed. I am pleasantly shocked, and I don't mean that to be insulting to the other people. There's some good people running. I think, the fact that you have no political background is stunning to me, because and maybe that's your greatest asset. But I'm glad you sound like a Ben Carson to me. I think that message is going to resonate, and I think you will instantly, I predict, not only win your race, but I think you'll instantly become a leader of ideas and solutions in the Senate. And I have the same admonition as you do for the Republicans. I think they've been timid and weak and visionless, and unless they get their act together, they're going to lose people like me.
Yeah,
so,
I hear you. Well, thanks for the kind words, and we've got to be.
I got to move to Nebraska. I'm going to buy a ranch in Texas. Now you still have a state tax in Nebraska. I'm not going to Nebraska.
Unfortunately, we do still have the state tax, but we also are the largest cattle state in the union now. So I want your Texas listeners to go to benfornebraska.com and check us out too. But you should still come to the ranch.
Listen, I said to Governor Perry one day, I said, I want to buy a little ranch in Texas. He goes, yeah, we got a 10,000 acre one. I said, no, I want a baby infant ranch. I just want like 15 heads of cattle. All right, listen, very impressive. Godspeed in what you're doing.
Thanks,
and for those of you in Nebraska, it's candidate Ben Sasse. Thank you, sir, and we'll invite your opponent on. But none of the Democrats, I don't know why, they won't come on my show.
Thanks for what you do, Sean.
Appreciate it.
Your show.
All right, man. 800. Wow. Linda, was he not impressive?
He was a rock star. I want him to run for president.
Oh, just bypass the Senate. Run for
I
president.
say forget the Senate. Let's go to presidency.
All right. Well, there's Linda's endorsement.
For more of the Sean Hannity Show, go to Hannity.com.